Do I look at you or look at
Wherever you want to
Doesn't
look.
matter.
You can look
I
at
guess
the
I'll-
ceiling.
eyeball
Okay.
to eyeball? How's that?
This is an interview with Carl D. Cooke, Beltran Living Center, Colonie, New York. It is the 6th of August, 2003, 3:30 p.m. The interviewers are Mike Russert and Wayne Clark. Could you tell us your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Yes, my full name is Carl Douglas Cooke. My date of birth is March 3rd, 1945, and my place of birth is Sidney, New York.
Okay. What was your educational background prior to entering service?
I had a 2-year degree and a year additional in another college.
Okay. Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I went enlisted.
In what year?
1969,
And you served until what year?
1973.
Okay. You enlisted in the Navy. Why did you pick the Navy?
Because I was partially colorblind, I originally wanted to go in the Air Force, but they couldn't take me. So, I don't think I had any particular reason. Possibly I could have been swayed because my uncle was in the Navy.
All right.
Uncle Joe was in the Navy, and at this time I don't remember, but maybe that was a possibility.
All right. Where did you go for your basic training?
Great Lakes, Illinois.
Okay. How long of training did you receive?
About 7 to 8 weeks.
And did you get any specialty training at all?
Not any special. It was just disciplining, like, indoctrination, getting you to work with each other as a team, and it is focusing that you are military and expected to act and look the part.
Okay. Where did you go after Great Lakes?
I went through Starkeeper School in San Diego, California. That's about 10 weeks.
Okay. And from there, you tell your story if you want to.
Storekeeping is with the Navy was involved in everything from issuing and storage of repair parts, consumable items, to financial records. As far as the schooling goes, where do you want me to go from there?
Well, just tell us what, where you went and some things you recall.
After about 10 weeks of storekeeper school, I went home for a couple weeks that I spent with family, and then I went to my first ship, which was Robert A. Owens, DDA 23, out of Norfolk, Virginia. And when I got there, my ship was out to sea down in, I believe it was Rosie Roads. I guess they call it Getmo. It was a training exercise. So I spent 10 days TAD aboard a Shenandoah, which was a destroyer tender. At that time, during that 10 days, I was pretty much cleaning the belches and whatever they wanted me to do. I wasn't in my rate, but it was good training, good experience, and my first time in shipboard duty, and then my ship came in. That was in, I think it was sometime in October. I was on the ship for maybe a couple, 3 months, and then at that time, storekeepers became a very critical rate, and they needed storekeepers to go to with the ships that were going to Vietnam, and so I was transferred to USS Wallace Lind, DD 703, also called the Jolly Wally, and we went through the Panama Canal zone. That was quite a thrill. I really enjoyed that, and we were home ported out of Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and it was.
Did you cross the equator?
No,
No, you never did.
Came within 10 degrees of it. Didn't cross it, but we were across or that was after we were out in out in the South Pacific. We did cross the international date line. We got a card. I don't no longer have, and I don't know where it is. But I guess because we crossed the international date line, we got a card for that. But we did. I heard about those people who shelled back sailors, but we missed it by 10 degrees. It got mighty hot down there in Panama Canal Zone, but we didn't cross it. So.
Okay. So you were stationed off Vietnam?
We were, as
I
I
know
said,
you were out of Pearl, but...
out of Pearl. We were, we had two functions there. We were day and night support activity off the coast of Vietnam, and we plane guarded for the carriers. Carl C's, the Ranger, and might have been a couple others. I can't remember which ones. We left Vietnam. We left Pearl and began our adventure towards Nam. We stopped in I don't know which is first. Guam, then Midway, and then we stopped at Subic Bay, Philippines, where we undergo changes to make us more ready for activities off the coast of Nam.
What kind of changes?
I can't tell you because I really don't know.
Right.
And if I could, I couldn't tell you anyway. But I was a storekeeper, and it wasn't in my. But we had. I can remember the ship. We had normally we had a crew of about maybe 200, and I think that. But when we went to Nam, we had a crew of about 280. We had a specific crew, and I was trying to think, communications crew in the center, I guess about midships, top deck, and I guess they were top secret and handled all probably traffic. We met all our. She was originally a sec keel in 1944, a leg keel. Her first activity was she pulled into Tokyo Bay at the surrender of victory in Japan. I guess the surrender of Japan during World War II. So that was her first activity. Then she had a lot of activity during the Korean War. And when I came on board her, she was about 29 years old. And she survived through all of that.
Did you do any fire support missions?
Yes, we did. We were day and night support activity. Day, of course, we had 3 5-inch 38s that we supported Allied troops in Vietnam, and at night we supplied illumination for Allied troops again. I do know that we did venture. I think we let off some brass. We did come into Subic Bay. We came in. We sat across from. I think it was a ship hospital afloat. I think it was the Hope or something like that that we were across from. Fortunately, we never got shot at, but our sister ship, fortunately, received some defective ammo, and my general quarters station was, I was part of the handling crew, one of the gun mounts, and they got some defective ammo, and it blew up the gun mount, killed 10 sailors. So God is good; He kept me alive. So.
How long were you stationed off Vietnam?
I would say we were there about 3 months. 3 months.
Now, did you ever go into port, or just?
Yes, we were all. We went.
I know you said
to
you went
Cooke,
to
Japan.
Subic.
We were there. We had time there, and we also were stationed a station ship in Hong Kong for 10 days. So, yeah, we did spend some, in those two ports, we had some time, our rest and relaxation.
Now, you were on duty until 73 then?
Active. I was
Active
active until 73, and February, and at that time I got a college cut. I was able to get out. I got out at that time.
Okay, now you mentioned you were in the Gulf or Desert Storm?
I was with Denver Stearns. After 12, I was telling him after 12 to 13 years of broken service, I went back in the Navy.
Okay, what years was
I was in from 1985 until August of 2001. I got my 20 years in.
Oh, okay. Could you tell us about why did you decide to go back in?
Because it was the idea of my job at that time wasn't enough to support my family, so that was my primary reason. It was bringing more money into the home.
What was your assignment between 85 and 2001?
I was a storekeeper. I was an E5 when I got active duty, and I came back in they allowed me to come back in as an E5. I was able to make E6 before I was separated from at reserve duty.
What were your ship assignments, or did you?
Well, I was a Seabee, and my last tour, except for the first 2 months, I was with an OE, Oiler, Milwaukee, but I was remaining of nearly most of all of my 16 years reserves, I was a Seabee. And pretty much we ordered uniforms and publications, but I was the type of person who, we went out on a lot of on our drill weekends. We many times, for 5 years, we spent flyaway mission out of Schenectady County Airport for the Air Force. So we in those 5 years we renovated a lot of their hangars at Otis Air Force Base for them, and I was in charge of we called them kits, tools, and that was had some real good duty there. And then with the Seabees, every other year we spent at Camp Lejeune at Tent City. So we got some military training down there. And I was going to say something else, but my mind went blank and I forgot what that was. But yeah, I was a squadron leader also with them. And so it was, oh, I know what I was going to say. Many of the times we went out on projects, either on the weekend duty, which was once a month, or our 2 weeks of active duty, and I enjoyed my rate, but I enjoyed more just getting out on projects. If they needed somebody to jump out on a roof or something like that to work on roofing or whatever, give me an opportunity of whatever they were doing. As you know, if they needed somebody who had a strong back and a willingness to work, it gave me an opportunity to work in other aspects into my rate. So I felt I could also take it home, because if I had some work to be done at home, at least if I couldn't do the work myself, I'd be smart enough to realize that, if somebody came in and did the work, and maybe I would be hopefully intelligent enough to know what I was getting involved in.
Okay.
And it gave me a good opportunity. Mechanics has always been an adventure for me. It gave me an opportunity to learn various tools, not only with the storekeeping, but also working with the Seabees. I was always awed, 16 years with the Seabees, because many of these guys, and we had a few ladies also, many of them came from they were self-employed in their own practices, and had their own businesses. And the craftsmanship and the pride that they took in work. In fact, nothing against being in the fleet, but if I had my choice to do it over again, I'd put in my 20 years as a Seabee. I really enjoyed being a Seabee. Well, as you probably heard of the movie, John Wayne, The Fighting Seabees.
Yes.
So I was very proud of being a Seabee. And so.
Well, how do you think your time in the service affected your life?
Oh,
I think you basically just told us.
I
but-
think as Uncle Joe says, it's well, and I'm trying to say this with truthfulness and honesty. I came from a community which was pretty much all white community, no minorities, and it was the idea of having an opportunity, whether it was a shipmate or working with a Seabee on a project, getting to know other cultures, and I think this hopefully made me a better person. We had an opportunity, and I think with most any of the services, and that's not necessarily the Navy, it was an opportunity to learn. You worked as a team, and if one of the chains broke, and I can think of circumstances in the active Navy, that we, and I'm sure Uncle Joe can too, that if you weren't there as a team, somebody decided they weren't going to do their part or was unable to do their part, it could hurt you, in time of war or time of peace, whatever the circumstances might be.
Have you stayed in contact with anyone that you served with at all?
I've tried to, but unfortunately, because of probably it's more of the logistics. I was originally from the East Coast, in the active Navy, and I went to the West Coast. With the reserves, I tried to stay in contact. Been out there a couple of times, but again, because of family situations and all, it's sometimes difficult. I get I can't even think of the name, but I do get a retired newsletter. It comes out as a quarterly, and I've been looking. I missed one time. I had a chance to go to a reunion for the one ship I was on, the USS Wallace Lind, DD 703, but I wasn't able because of a family situation. But I haven't seen any reunions, so.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.